Good morning to one and all. Today we will discuss fourth chapter of transportation engineering. In this fourth chapter, it is entirely comprises of highway materials. In the first chapter, we have discussed introduction about these road systems. That means how the Indian roads were developed. What are the different committees involved in the development of Indian road committees. In case of the second chapter, we discuss the highway geometric design. That means what are the different kinds of road alignments we are having. In those particular road alignments, what are the types we are having, which type of road is suitable for which kind of alignment. That means hilly areas, plain areas, terrain areas, and some slopey areas, all we are having. For those which different kinds of terrain, which kind of alignment is suitable, which is more usable without any accidents and restriction. That means without any collisions. In the third chapter, we discussed the traffic engineering. That means there is a development is there automatically, that alignments is there. After that, we need to focus on how traffic is moving on the roads, what are the problems the traffic is facing, how we need to rectify those problems by different engineering principles, so that all the surveys and different kinds of alignments and these traffic signals and speed studies, traffic volume studies, signal studies, accident studies, parking studies, all we discussed in the third chapter. After that, all are over. We have to focus on problems. That means how the road was designed, what are the major things involved in the designing of a road. That means mainly we have to focus on the materials, what kind of materials normally we have to prefer, what are the major parameters of that materials, from what source the materials are extruding, all those things are involved in these highway materials. So that we have to focus on these highway materials by dividing those materials into different groups. Normally we are having two major kinds of roads. First one is the plain, that means rigid pavements, and after that we are having this construction pavements. So that how rigid pavements is constructed and other pavements are constructed, what is the major difference between those two kinds of pavements. First of all, we have to give some kind of introduction about this pavement materials, so that we need to know what is the pavement subjected to various conditions. First of all, we have to know what are the things that are involved in the design of a pavement. That means normally if you want to go for particular design, we have to focus on what are the factors involved in the design, so that we need to observe the factors. After that, we have to go for design. Why? Because normally in the traffic lane studies and other introduction studies, we have to get the data. That means what are the parking studies we are having, so that for the parking purpose, what kind of angles we have to use, either 30 degrees angle or 45 degrees or 60 degrees or 90 degrees. Likely we are having different kinds of studies. After parking, we are having this traffic volume studies, so that we have to ask each and every persons involved in the particular road alignments, so that we have to collect the data. After the data collection is over, we have to sort out that data into number of parts, for which kind of area this pattern is suitable. Likely we are having different pavements, so that in that particular pavements, what are the stresses acting, what are the strains acting, what are the different factors we are having, so that we need to know before going to design. Okay, first of all, we have to observe what are the factors and things involved in the pavement designs. First of all, there is a point, pavement subjected to various conditions. conditions means different areas were having different conditions. Normally in Himalayas there may be some cold climates, so that due to those cold climates we have to design road for different purpose. In the middle east of the India we are having some amount of huge amount of this temperature, so that we have to design according to the temperature. After that, in the bottom part we are having Kerala, Tamil Nadu and south area, that means southern region, we are having more amount of floods and temperature with associated with the rainfalls, so that we have to design one kind of roads according to that particular temperature, so that there may be some place to place variation. We need to focus on the surrounding atmospheric conditions and topographical features and population variation. All those things are involved in this particular design of a road. First of all, we are having pavement subjected to various conditions. First one is the weather changes. As previously we discussed, in our India we are having different climatic factors. Place to place we are having different areas. In Rajasthan we are having totally a desert areas, so that in the deserts we are having a huge amount of temperature variation between more than 50 degrees to 60 degrees in normal days. So that after that we are having this Chennai. This Chennai is a completely marine based environment they are having. After that, Calcutta, it is also a marine based environment. Madhya Pradesh, it is totally surrounded with soil conditions and other. Next one, Mumbai is also having some amount of area which is high industrialized, so that there may be some amount of temperature variation. So that Bangalore, it is totally surrounded by forest areas, so that Karnataka having huge amount of forests. After that, Kerala we are having huge amount of rainfall, and Assam also having huge amount of rainfall, so that we need to focus on temperature features and climatic features. What are the climatic features and temperature features available in those particular areas? All those comes under this weather changes. Next one, impact loads. Means whatever the vehicles traveling on a particular road surface, all those creates some amount of impact on the particular top layer of your road. Majorly this impact depends upon the types of vehicles are moving on the roads. We are having different types of roads: national highways, express road, state highways, major district roads, other district roads, village roads and subarterial roads. Likely in these expressways major content of vehicles are these two wheelers and normally four wheelers and other traveling vehicles are moving. So that what is the impact when the four wheelers and other traveling vehicles, commercial vehicles moving on that particular expressways? So that we need to go for survey. That means survey means we have to collect some quantity of data regarding those expressways and types of loads acting on the expressways. Likely we are having different kinds of roads, so that we need to do some kind of investigations on those roads. What are the load propagation on the particular road? Is there any impact caused due to those vehicular movement? So that what is the lifespan due to those kind of movements? Is there any decrement of lifespan or increment of lifespan due to the different differential usage? All those things comes under this impacts of loads. These impacts of loads also having another kind of phenomena. We are having different seaports. From that seaports we have to from those seaports we are having different kinds of exterior. That means we need to export our things and import from other countries, so that there may be huge quantity of load can be transferred from our country and delivered to our country, so that those vehicles also having some huge amount of impacts on the road strata. Next one, imposed loads. These imposed loads means impact load means normally impact loads are created by the movement of vehicles. Next one, imposed means, so imposed means there may be some natural flowing. Likely we are having a different imposed loads or these snow loads and dead loads. All those are comes under this impact loads. Normally this term impact loads associated with these design subjects. You are having a design subjects like RCC and steel structures and earthquake resistant design structures. In those three kinds of subjects, we have to face these impact loads. There are some quantity of code books also there. IS 875. The total 875 code book is related to these different types of loads acting on the structures. But it is entirely different. Why? Because it is a road structure. Normally, we are designing a buildings or any other structural components. For these road structures, they are separately. We are having a code book of Indian Road Congress, so that we need to follow the impact loads prescribed in this Indian Road Congress. Next one we are having is the should not undergo excessive deformation and settlement. This is the excessive deformation. Whenever the road goes to deformation means if there is a huge amount of load applied on the particular area of the road, automatically due to those application of load there may be some amount of deformation. That means deformation means due to the huge amount of load the matter will deform. That means the area of the road will be changing or thickness of the pavement will be changing due to the movement of these vehicles. Next one, settlement. This settlement means automatically if there is no proper kinds of rollings. That means normally in the design of a particular road we have to go for some quantity of rolling systems by using these rollers. Normally these rollers are used for the compaction of road surface. Why? Because there are some quantity of stratas. For those stratas there may be some amount of voids are there in the layer by layer by layers. Normally in the earth also we are having layer by layer. Some topography is there on the top portion of the earth. After that we are having different stratas. In those particular stratas also there may be huge amount of water is there in the beneath layers of the earth surface, so that we are extracting those kind of water with the help of these ground boreholes and others. Likely we are having huge amount of water bodies and air bodies below the earth surface and different layers. In some cases we are simply extracting those natural resources in the form of this petroleum and crude oil. Next one, this natural gas. After the extracting of those all features, so there may be some amount of voids will be there on the earth surfaces, so that whenever we are having those kind of voids, after the removal of the total matter, simply there may be some amount of air in the structure. I will give some examples. This is the total earth, so that there may be some quantity of layers. This is the core. The central part we are called as the core. After that we are having mantle. The second layer we will call it as a mantle. The top layer we will call it as a crust. Okay, these are the three major portions of our earth. The central portion we are having core. That means in the core we are having a huge amount of temperature. Normally in foreign countries we are having some quantities of these volcanoes. Normally due to this leakage of core there may be some amount of magma comes to the mountains and the magma will be exploding in different areas. Those are due to these fractures in the earth layers to these hills and mountains. Those comes with the help of these gaps which are coming which are lies on the particular earth strata, so that the core having where a huge amount of material in the form of liquid state. After that we are having a solid. After that a fine powder is on the top surface of the earth. Normally in the top surface of the earth we are having some quantity of earthen material. Those earthen material is in the fine powder. After that some portion we are having some quantity of huge strengthy materials, like in our surrounding areas we are having some quantity of hills, so that in the particular hills we are having some hard materials. Those hard materials are formed by the cooling of this magma which is present in the core area. Okay, likely the soil strata is different in different areas, so that we have to observe what is the area we are having, what is the top layer strength. If the top layer is very poor, automatically we have to go for this strengthening parameters by simply using these rollers. those rollers will decrease the quantity of voids present in the earth surface. If we want to go for this rolling, simply we have to go for settlement automatically. If there is any external load application, simply due to those load applications, the total voids will decreases and the total road will go for settlement. Normally in village roads we are observing, after falling off these rains and others, simply the total surface will be ఎరోడెడ్ అండ్ స్మాల్ క్వాంటిటీస్ ఆఫ్ పిట్స్, గొంతలు లాంటివి ఫామ్ అవుతూ ఉంటాయి. ఆ గొంతలు మనకి ఎందుకు ఫామ్ అవుతాయి అంటే డ్యూ టు దిస్ ల్యాక్ ఆఫ్ రోలింగ్ ఆన్ ద రోడ్ సర్ఫేస్. దోస్ మనం గొంతలు నార్మల్గా డ్యూ టు దిస్ సెటిల్మెంట్ దోస్ పిట్స్ కెన్ బి ఫార్మ్డ్. పిట్స్ అంటే మనకి గొంతలో అమ్మ, పిఐటిఎస్, పిట్స్. నెక్స్ట్ వన్, డిఫరెన్షియల్ సెటిల్మెంట్స్, ఫెయిల్యూర్ ఆఫ్ పేవ్మెంట్స్. Here we are having these differential settlements. Differential settlements means normally due to different reasons, some kinds of roads having some structural features, due to this huge amount of traffic or huge amount of these load carrying vehicles or any cases, we are having these settlements. So that means different reasons we are having these different settlements. Those are differential settlements. And failure of payments due to those reasons also we need to understand, and we have to evaluate those reasons. First of all, we have to go and see the pavement surface. Is there any structural features involved or any other failure mechanism is there? After that evaluation of the data, we have to go for these finding the reasons. After the reason is over, we have to lay down the road by simply using different mechanisms. After that, we are having a high compressibility and plastic properties are not desirable for pavement construction. So that we have to go for different differential materials. So that normally we are using this cement and coarse aggregates for concrete roads, and bitumen and these chips for tar roads. Likely we have to use different quantities of materials for strengthening of roads. Why? Because day to day the population is simply increasing and the vehicular traffic also increasing. Automatically those roads are not sufficient for those load bearings. We have to go for some advanced materials. Why? Because those advanced materials will have huge amount of bearing capacity, so that the road will be withstands whenever we are going to use these advanced materials. Next one, good quality of soil is required. That means previously we discussed some quantity of soil is not suitable for construction purpose. So that we have to test that soil in the laboratories. Is it sufficient or not for bearing of those loads? If it is sufficient, automatically we have to go for construction. If it is not sufficient for load bearing capacities, automatically we have to use some quantity of industrial wastages. That means normally from thermal power plants and steel power plants, they are using huge amount of this coal and ore materials, iron ores, hematite, magnetite, like aluminum they are using bauxite. They are using different quantities of ore materials simply by extracting from the ground surface. Those waste materials we have to use and employ in the fields of construction purpose, and we need to get a good quality of strength by using those waste materials produced from the industries and thermal power plants. So that it is the introduction part. After that, we are having this pavement cross section. What is a pavement? What are the different parts involved in the pavement cross section? What is a normal pavement cross section? What are the different layers we are having? So that we need to observe. First of all, the pavement mainly consists of embankment. That means embankment is the side portion of your road. Where next one we are having subgrade. That means after the pavement we are having this subgrade and subbase. Below the subgrade we are having this subbase and base and wearing course. All those things we are having some quantity of pictures. In those pictures, those layers will be nominated by these terms. We have to observe with respect to those pictures. Then only we are having some quantity of clear knowledge. And different types of materials are used depending upon the layer requirement. That means Here they use a particular term. Different types of materials are used depending upon the layer requirement. Different quantities of materials normally they are using for construction of the road. Why? Because in the previous slide we are observing that means the different weather changes, impacts of the loads, imposed loads. Those are all the problems faced by a particular road. So that we need to evolve those problems by using these different types of materials. Why? Because in some of the areas we are having a huge amounts of these rainfalls. So that whenever there is a rainfall, automatically the total rainwater will have to sink onto the surface of the earth. So that we need to block those sinking of rainwater onto the road surface simply by constructing with embankments. Likely we have to use some amount of these plastic membranes, so that those plastic membranes having capacity to not entraining of water into the road surfaces. So that in the surroundings of the roads we have to use these plastic covers in the base course of a road. That means between after the top layer is over, in the embankments we have to use these plastic covers. After the plastic cover is over, on the top surface of the plastic cover we have to use some quantity of material for filling purpose, so that these will be helpful for us to control the entrainment of water onto the below substructures of a road. It is the best idea nowadays. This is the mostly using in national highways. Why? Because those national highways we are having major amount of traffic is flowing on daily basis. If there is any rupture means automatically the total traffic have to divert into another state highways. If the traffic is diverted to state highways, automatically there may be huge amount of waiting or traffic delays. So that to arrest those kind of problems, simply they are using some advanced materials in the national highways for free flow of these vehicles. Simply they are choosing different types of materials depending upon the layers requirement. This is the total meaning. Top layer we have to construct with different quantities of materials and qualities of materials to arrest those features. That means previously the roads having different problems in different areas. So that according to the area, though, to arrest those problems they are having different alternative materials. So that simply they are using those alternative materials in the fields of roads by simply choosing the problem. Next one, soil is the main constituent in the subgrade embankment. That means the total road have to stay on the soil platform. That means whatever the road we have to construct, the road have to withstand on the road total soil only. There is no other construction is there. Automatically, if we are simply constructing a building means automatically the total building will have to sustain on the total soil surface. Likely if the road is constructed means automatically road also have to withstand on soil surface only. So that the soil is the major constituent we are having. So that we have to observe the soil features. Is it a good soil or bad soil? What is the condition of that particular soil in rainy season, in winter season, in summer season? How the soil will behaves? Is there any problems due to the soil in different areas? All those things we have to observe. Otherwise we have to face some consequences in rainy seasons, in summer seasons. Why? Because in rainy seasons there may be entrainment of a huge amount of water onto the top layers of the roads. So that the soil is very weak. When the water is there, automatically the road have to deform due to the entrainment of water. After that we are having these summer seasons. In the summer season the road have to face a huge amount of temperatures. That means 40 degrees and 50 degrees, and automatically there may be traffic flow. Means simultaneously there may be two actions, both temperature is there and stresses due to vehicular movement. Due to those two conditions, the road will have to withstand, or there may be some amount of deformation. That means normally if we heat a particular material and we some continuously we are applying a force means automatically the material will deforms. Likely in the temporary summer season also, particularly for these tar roads, that means flexible pavements, there may be some quantity of some length of deformation due to this vehicular movement as well as temperature increasement. So that we have to use our different features for controlling those kind of problems. Next one, aggregates are used in the sub base and base layers. Sub base means normally base layer. After the pavement is over, we have base layer. After the base, we are having sub base. I will show with a particular example. This is the total layer we are having with some proper drainage facilities. After that, we are having some quantity of base. After that, we are having this is the base. The total will rests on the total road will rests on base. This is the sub base. The total road and base will rest on sub base. Likely we are having different layers, layer by layer, layer by layer. There might be some quantities of layers. In the upcoming slides, there may be from diagrammatic representations. In that particular diagrammatic representations, you have a clear cut idea. What is the total pavement? What is base? What is sub base? What is the shoulder? What is the thickness of that particular pavement? All those things you have to observe on that slides. After that, we have to go for aggregates are used in the sub base and base layers. That means the total pavement will have to rest on these base layers and sub base layers. Why we are constructing these base layer and sub base layers with aggregates means normally we have the soil will have some less compressive strength properties. Why? Because the total road have to bear huge amount of compressive loads due to these vehicular movements. Whenever the vehicle will stand on the particular road, the total load will have to dissipate into the soil by these base layers and sub base layers, so that those two will have some quantity of these compressive properties. So that simply we are constructing those base layers and sub base layers with the help of these aggregates. Normally these coarse aggregates we are using and coarse aggregate supplements. Why? Because to bear a huge amount of compressive loads. Next one, aggregates and binding materials on the top layer. Before in the previous point we are observing base and sub base layers, we are using only these aggregates, but in case of this top layer we are having this binding material with the help of these aggregates, so that those are also having a capable, those are also having responsible for compressive loads, so that those also have some quantity of these properties. Next one, subgrade and embankment provide support for the pavement. I will show. This is the total base we are having, so that after that we are having some quantity of embankment. After that we are having this shoulders. Okay, this is the total structure of the road. Normally I am enlarging some quantity of dimension in the road. Why? Because you need to identify what is the drainage, what is the super elevation, so that subgrade and embankment provided support for the pavement. These are the base, sub base, and this is the subgrade. You have to identify what is the base, sub base, and subgrade. First of all, the total road will rest on base course. The total base course will rest on sub base course. After that, we are having this subgrade. That means the total surface of the earth is a subgrade surface. Okay, the total road will have to rest on these subgrades and surrounding embankments. Normally, purpose of embankment means to provide some period of resting for the vehicles. These embankments are constructed on the road, so that those embankments are also very useful. Why? Because the force dissipation will show there is a some quantity of load is applying on the particular road surface in terms of these tires and others will transfers the stresses to the road surface, so that the force will have to go in different directions and the total force will have to zero. Otherwise there may be some amount of cracks, so that the total force, This is the force applying from a particular points. So that the force will subdivide into number of parts. So that those number of parts will be delayed by these subgrades and embankments. If there is no proper embankments, automatically due to the application of the force from the tires, the total road will collapse in a months or weeks of time. So that there may be some quantity of embankment is required for every road. Normally for these BT roads, that means bitumen tar roads, there may be some huge amount of embankments are required. Why? Because we are observing whenever we are traveling on these national highways, some amount of slope is mentioned. This is the normal road. Automatically, after the particular road is there, there may be some quantity of embankment will be there. This is the road surface. After that, we are having some quantity of space for vehicle parking. This is the total embankment in the triangular form. These embankments normally we have to observe in railways also. By using this ballast, they are keeping some quantity of embankment. Why? Because the rails are moving with a huge amount of speed. They need to dissipate the total force from this slip from the train wheels to these rails, and rails to these sleepers, and sleepers to ballast to the ground layer, so that there may be huge amount of base course and sub base courses are there in railways. But in case of these roadways, we are having only pavement, base, sub base. After that, we are having this embankment. So that we have to focus on these four layers. Next one, different types of failure such as rutting and showing the flexible pavements and cracking the rigid pavements are due to this poor subgrade soil. Okay, we have to observe. We are having different kinds of failures. What are the failures we are having is rutting. That means rutting means normally there may be some quantity of material will be losing from the total soil strata. There is if the vehicles are moving with a huge amount of speed, there may be sudden application of the brakes. Automatically, the force will have to dissipate on only particular portion. At cross sections like junctions, we are observing these kind of failures, rutting and showing. Normally, at junction areas in highways or any other places near to the villages, in the particular junctions, there may be some amount of road will have to move. Why? Because due to this kind of vehicular movements and due to సడన్ అప్లికేషన్ ఆఫ్ ద బ్రేక్స్, మనం ఎన్నిసార్లు రోడ్ని కన్స్ట్రక్ట్ చేసినా కానీ అవి రోడ్డు మొత్తం కూడా మనకి టాప్ సర్ఫేస్ మొత్తం కూడా ఓపెన్ అయిపోతూ ఉంటుంది. ఎందువల్ల అంటే ఆ వెహికల్ మొత్తం కూడా మనకి హ్యూజ్ అమౌంట్ స్పీడ్తో వస్తూ ఉంటాయి, సడన్గా అక్కడ బ్రేక్ వేస్తూ ఉంటాయి. ఎందువల్ల అంటే మనకి సడన్గా టర్నింగ్స్ అనేవి ఉండడం వల్ల, నెక్స్ట్ ఫీచర్స్ అనేవి కొంచెం డిఫరెంట్గా ఉండటం వల్ల డ్రైవర్స్ అనేవాళ్ళు సడన్ బ్రేక్స్ అనేవి ఇటువంటి ఏరియాస్లో అప్లై చేయాల్సి వస్తుంది. అప్పుడు ఏమవుతుందంటే మనకి ఆ వెహికల్ యొక్క కెపాసిటీని బట్టి కూడా మనకి రోడ్ అనేది తొందరగా ఎరోడ్ అయిపోయే ఛాన్స్ ఉంటుంది. ఆ యొక్క ఎరోజన్ని మనం ఇక్కడ ఏమంటున్నాం అంటే రట్టింగ్ అండ్ షోయింగ్. డెఫినెట్లీ ఇన్ ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ ఫ్లెక్సిబుల్ పేమెంట్స్, those rutting and showing not in case of these rigid pavements. Why? Because rigid pavements having some huge amount of thickness of the pavement, huge amount of thickness for the rigid pavement. But in case of flexible pavements, we are maintaining some quantity of thin pavements, not thick pavements. Thin means మనకి థిక్నెస్ మనకి డైమెన్షన్ తక్కువగా ఉంటే కనుక థిన్ అంటాము, డైమెన్షన్ తక్కువగా ఉంటే కనుక థిక్ అంటాము, ఎక్కువగా ఉంటే కనుక థిన్ అంటాం. Cracking in the rigid pavements are due to poor subgrade soils. Why? Because due to these poor subgrade soils. Poor means the soil properties are very very poor, very very less compared to the normal ordinary soils. Whenever we are having this poor quantity of soils, means automatically there is no proper force dissipation into the subsoils. Due to those improper force dissipation, automatically the total force will be dissipated on the top layers only. There is no force dissipation into the bottom layers. Normally it is the total road surface, so that the load is acting on the surface, so that the total load will have to divert into different directions. Okay, if there is no proper force dissipation, automatically the total force will have to divert into membrane only. This is the normal actual good soil, the force dissipation should be like that. Automatically the force may be dissipated in the within the pavement. There may be some quantity of bond breakage between the particle to particle, so that the total pavement will having some quantity of cracks in tar roads and cement roads. Normally we are observing in everywhere in our localities, some having some cracks in the roads. Why? Because due to this improper dissipation of the force due to the subgrades of the soils, we are observing those kind of cracks. We need to arrest those cracks simply by using some binding materials. Normally in TVs also we are observing Dr. Fixit to arrest the cracks. We are normally they are using Dr. Fixit for cement pavements. But in case of these BT roads, that means tar roads, simply they are using this tar for the crack repairing or crack healings. These are the major things. Next one, we have to observe what is the soil, what are the desirable properties on the soil we are having. Accumulation or deposit of earth materials formed by the disintegration of rocks. As previously we discussed, earth is having some three quantities of layers. First one is the core. In the core we are having a huge amount of temperature lies between this 5000 to 10,000 degrees centigrade. After that we are having some quantities of hard rock strata. The hard means some quantity of less thickness. After that we are having this crust surface. In the particular crust top layers we are having some disintegrated rocks. Those rocks are disintegrated due to these atmospheric conditions. So due to wind flow, water flow, and sun. That means suns means normally we are having some amount of temperature due to this sun rays. Due to those all three features and external parameters like this movement of animals or any other things on the surface of the road, there may be some disintegration of the rock, so that those rocks are disintegrated day to day, and totally those rocks will form into a fine clayey material, so that the total clayey materials looks like a subgrade soils in the particular road surface and villages were having these subgrades with soils, so that the soil is comes by the disintegration of the rocks by weathering process due to this sun and water and wind. Okay, come of forced temperature pressure and due to this plant or animal life. Normally due to the movement of animals, normally earth having a huge amount of life period, lakhs of years, so that in the lakhs of years we are having different creatures are involved in the earth life, so that dragons and any other elephants in the olden days simply they are moving on the earth. Due to those movement and this rainfall and temperature and sun's atmosphere, all those are combinedly giving some quantity of this erosion on the top layer, so that these lands are formed. Those are useful for the farming purpose in naturally olden days. After that we are having a huge amount of industrialization and this rapid urbanization. We are constructing different kinds of houses and other structures on the lands. What are the desirable properties required for a good quality of the soil? First of all, stability. Stability means a standard position on a particular surface of the earth. There is no movement whenever we are applying an external force on the material. That means if a particular body is standard on a particular position of the earth surface, there may be a huge amount of forces applying in terms of wind or water or any other external parameters, so that due to those parameters there may be no movement in the body. Those kind of bodies we will call it as a stability is high. If the body is simply moving means there may be less kind of stability. Normally this
trees we are daily observing, whenever the wind is flowing with a huge amount of speed, automatically those trees will make some quantity of sound by moving. Those are due to instability in their structurals. If the building will flow like that, automatically within the 2 days or 3 days the total building will collapses. But trees are not collapsing means why? Because their structural and DNA is looking like for years and years they simply stand like that by some quantity of these bending parameters are in their particular DNAs. Likely there may be some stability is there by simply moving. But normally stability means there will be no movement whenever we are applying an external load on the structure. Those are called as a stable structures. If we are the structure is simply unstable means normally rubber is there. Rubber will have to bend whenever a small force is applied on the rubber surface. But steel is not bent easily. At a high loads it will bend. Why? Because their structural features and stability features are very good. Rubber having some less quantity of structural features. Next one, incompressibility. Incompressibility means, as previously I discussed, rubber is an compressible. That means it will tend to change in any direction easily due to external application of forces. But in case of steel also a brittle material, but it will tends to a different positions with huge amount of tons and tons of loads. Next one, permanency of the strength. That means permanency of the strength means automatically where there is a water or any other material simply involved in the earth surfaces, automatically the strength will be reduces. That means simply we are diluting the parameters. If the dilution is there, automatically strength will be decreases. Next one, minimum change in the volume. Volume means automatically due to external parameters like temperatures and waters, there may be some quantity of change of volume due to these minimum changes. If the temperature is rising to 40 degrees or 35 degrees, there may be some cracks appear on the particular black cotton soils. Those are these minimum change in the volume. Why? Because in the red soils we are having this less volume change, but in case of these black cotton soils we are having huge amount of volume changes. Next one, good drainage properties. Good drainage means these sandy soils are having good drainage properties. Why? Because those are having huge amount of pores or voids. Due to those voids, water will drainage easily. But in case of black cotton soils or red soils, they have to wait for huge amount of time for percolation purpose of the water. Next one, ease of compaction. Ease of compaction means by applying a small external forces, we need to decrease the particular volume of the material. Simply decrease the volume means we need to decrease the quantity of voids and water present on the soils. All those are the properties of the soils.